After my SATs, I, a total homebody, chose a college over 1,000 miles away. My parents were furious. Just because of a room? Yes. I was the only daughter of a comfortable, upper-middle-class family. They owned 3 properties. And yet, at 18, I still didn't have my own room. At my 18th birthday party, in front of all our friends and relatives, I made my wish out loud. I want my own little room. The room fell silent. One relative whispered in disbelief. She doesn't have her own room? A girl that age needs her privacy. And she's an only child, too. We have 2 kids, and we gave up our living room to make a 3rd bedroom for them. Ignoring the instant change in my parents' expressions, I smiled brightly. That's right. I don't have my own room. My dad forced a tight smile. She's just joking. She's our only daughter, and we have 3 houses. How could she not have her own room? My mom shot me a desperate look. Lily is just teasing us. Quick, make another wish. I sighed internally and said, with all the seriousness I could muster, Mom, Dad, I'm 18 now. I really want my own space. The room went quiet again. The relatives exchanged glances, their expressions turning complicated as they looked at my parents. Both of them had stable government jobs, were financially well off, and had carefully crafted a public image of doting parents. How could their own daughter not even have a room to herself? Suddenly, my grandmother started to cry. It's my fault. I've taken my granddaughter's room. I'm so old. I've become a burden to my children and grandchildren. I felt a pang of guilt. My grandmother had always been distant with me, but we shared a room for over a decade. I wasn't without feelings for her. Maybe I'd gone too far. While I was hesitating, a sharp slap hit my face. My dad stood there, his hand raised, breathing heavily. You ungrateful brat. Acting like you're too good for your grandmother already. My mom rushed over, trying to hold my dad back while anxiously checking my face. Lily, we can talk about this at home. Did you think Mom and Dad wouldn't say yes? I just stood there, stunned. The truth is, I did have my own room once for a short while. But when I was 6, my grandpa passed away, and my grandma was brought from the countryside to live with us. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. My parents had one room, so grandma had to share with me. I wanted my own room since I was 6. I'd been protesting ever since. But every time I brought it up, they would just laugh it off. Or they'd dismiss me with excuses. You and your grandma are both girls. What's the big deal? Besides, if you don't have enough space for your things, we can just build a few more shelves. But what I needed was my own space. A room that was just mine. With the intense pressure of school, I needed a place where I could decompress. I wanted my room to be filled with things I loved, not my grandmother's various health supplements and her drab, graying clothes. Grandma snored and ground her teeth when she slept. And like most older people, she got up frequently during the night. I was constantly sleep-deprived, dozing off during the day. For the 3 days of my SATs, my uncle finally came and picked her up. I thought it was finally over, that I could finally breathe. I started daydreaming about how I'd decorate the room, how I'd invite my friends over to see it. And then, as soon as my exams were finished, she was sent right back. My joy was short-lived. I had even once, in a moment of desperation, humbly suggested to my parents that I could make a little partitioned space in the bathroom, the kitchen, or on the balcony. All I wanted was a private space. I didn't care if it was cramped or a little smelly. My mom just stared at me like I was a clueless child and scolded me gently. You're the apple of our eye. How could we let you sleep in a bathroom or a kitchen? Think of the embarrassment if people found out. My dad would pat my head with a chuckle. Silly girl. If my colleagues found out that I, a dean at the school, was making my daughter sleep in the bathroom, I'd be laughed out of town. Knowing my protests were hopeless, I decided to go for broke at my party, hoping that a little pressure from our relatives might convince my parents to finally give me a small room. More importantly, I wanted to remind them that I was an adult now, not a child. I needed my own physical, private space. Was that really such an insane request? The hotel banquet hall was a blur of noise. My dad's eyes were red as he glared at me. It seemed that slapping me wasn't enough to quell his anger. My mom and a crowd of guests were holding him back, trying to calm him down. I felt like I couldn't hear anything. My face was on fire. I clutched it and ran out of the hotel. The cool night air helped to clear my chaotic, grief-stricken head. The lights of countless homes twinkled around me, but I just felt empty. My cousin Dana, with whom I always had a cool relationship, sent me a text. You know, I used to be so jealous of you. Your parents both had stable government jobs and good incomes. Not like my parents, who ran a street stall and barely scraped by, just enough to feed and clothe me. It was true. Growing up, I always had the newest dresses and went to the best tutoring centers. When it came to my education and daily life, my parents never seemed to skimp. While my peers complained about having to share snacks and toys with their siblings, I was grateful I was an only child, the apple of my parents' eye. So, when it came to not having my own room, I would even try to console myself, thinking maybe they had their reasons. After all, with their resources and finances, getting me a room would have been simple. I didn't reply. Another message from Dana came through. But I stopped being jealous of you a long time ago. Want to know why? I turned off my phone, refusing to engage with her attempt to kick me while I was down. I sat on a bridge, the river below so dark in the night I couldn't see the bottom. Just like how I suddenly couldn't see my parents' love for me clearly anymore. I don't know how much time passed before the sound of sirens filled the air. Lost in my own thoughts, I hadn't noticed that a crowd had gathered on the other side of the bridge. My mom was standing out front, shouting, "Lily, we already decided to get a new house. We just hadn't had a chance to tell you. Please just come down, okay?" My dad's eyes were red-rimmed, and he was slapping his own face over and over. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have hit you." Dad just lost his temper for a second. I looked down. I was sitting so close to the edge of the bridge that it seemed if I just stretched out my leg, I'd fall right in. So it was all a huge misunderstanding. I apologized to the police and quickly got off the bridge. My parents hugged me tightly, as if I were a lost treasure they had just found. "Lily, you're mom and dad's most precious baby." "That's right. We'll go put a deposit on a new house tomorrow." I didn't explain. If this meant I would finally get my own room, I'd let them misunderstand just this once. Besides the room issue, they really were flawless parents in every other aspect. My parents took me out for another meal. It was spicy hot pot, my favorite. Neither of my parents could handle spicy food, but they watched me eat with gentle smiles. One poured my drink, the other wiped my mouth. We looked like the most loving family of three, with me as the sole center of their world. A few girls at the next table shot me envious looks. In that moment, I was basking in the full force of my parents' love, with a sense of satisfaction, feeling like my struggle had paid off, and with a touch of defiance, I replied to Dana. "My parents decided to buy a new house. You can go on being jealous of me." Dana didn't reply for a long time. I thought I had won. She must have felt ashamed of what she said. I even started to regret being so impulsive earlier, for embarrassing my parents. They were already planning to get a new house. They hadn't forgotten about me after all. That night, my uncle came and took Grandma for a few days, but her clothes and belongings were still there. I knew she would be back to live with us. But it didn't matter. I could tolerate it a little longer. After all, I had been tolerating it for years and dawn was just ahead. For the first time, I was alone in my little room. I binge-watched shows, drank Coke, and laughed as loud as I wanted without a care in the world. I threw my trash wherever I wanted, knowing I could just clean it up in the morning. I wore light, comfortable clothes and propped my feet up on the desk, not worrying about anyone walking in. I even dug out the confession notes boys from school had written me from the very bottom of my drawer. I admired them shamelessly, reading them out loud. The next day, when we went to look at houses, I was even more excited than my parents. They had their eye on a community perfect for retirement, with a community cafeteria nearby and a quiet, peaceful environment. But the development was new, and because the prices were reasonable and the location was good, it was selling out fast. When we looked, there were only a few 3-bedroom and 2-bedroom units left. There was one 3-bedroom on a lower floor. All 3 rooms were spacious. The only drawback was the connecting corridor, which meant the lighting might not be great. I carefully watched my parents' faces. When I saw no obvious signs of dissatisfaction, I let out a huge sigh of relief. I happily spun around in the smallest room. I imagined where my little bed would go. I put a large clothing rack here to hang my costume collection, without having to worry about my grandma's clothes being mixed in and looking out of place. I could also fill the shelves with my collectibles, without worrying that my grandma's poor eyesight would lead to her accidentally breaking them. The sales agent came over with a contract. Look how much the little lady loves it. Sir, ma'am, you should lock it down now. My parents exchanged a look and waved their hands. We left in a hurry this morning and forgot our bank cards. We'll come back to sign this afternoon. After seeing the house, I got a notification from my school's group chat, saying we could now submit our college preferences. My dad smiled and asked me, with your scores, you can get into a good university here in town. You could even come home on weekends. My mom held my hand. That's right. My baby girl has never been away from me. I don't think I could bear it. I leaned into my mom's embrace. I'm a total mama-s girl and daddy-s girl. I've always said I'd never go to a school more than 10 miles from home. My parents looked at each other and laughed, their voices full of pride and joy. I knew that today, we were all satisfied. All the past friction had completely vanished. After all, what grudge can last overnight between parents and their child? That evening, I was scrolling through my phone when I saw a new post from today's sales agent on his social media. Sold another unit in Building 5. A great day. My hand froze. Building 5 was all large 2-bedroom units. The agent had specifically pointed that out. When we were looking at the houses, the agent, probably trying to boost his sales, had added me on WhatsApp. My parents were inside, quietly discussing the layout, and didn't he notice? He had posted it around 3 or 4 in the afternoon, right when my parents were supposed to be paying the deposit. I had wanted to go with them, but my mom had pinched my cheek. Look at my daughter's perfect skin. We can't let you get a tan. I had even pouted and asked them to bring me back ice cream on their way home. My mom, not knowing which flavor I wanted, had bought every single one. I was so happy at the time that I posted a picture on social media with the caption, I have the best mom and dad in the world. I tried to calm myself. What if I misheard or remembered it wrong? With my heart pounding, I sent a quick message to the sales agent. He was in a good mood and replied quickly, your dad picked a great place for you. You locals really know how to dote on your daughters. Even though it only has 2 bedrooms, it's perfect for a family of 3. My heart sank. My mind went completely blank. At that exact moment, a message from Dana came through. The moment I heard your mom trying to convince my mom to have a son, I stopped being jealous of you. I'm a real only child. You're just an only child by policy. I'm not trying to gloat. I just wanted you to see the truth. But clearly you're pretty slow. No, that's not it. I shook my head, trying to deny it. What if Grandma wasn't going to live with us anymore? Maybe she had other plans? Clinging to this last shred of hope, I walked out of my room. My parents were sitting on the sofa with a calculator, discussing their plans. The money from selling this place can cover the rest of the payment on the new one. The new place is move-in ready. We probably don't need to bring any of the old furniture. They saw me and immediately waved me over. Lily, come help us with the math. You're young, your brain is sharp. I tried to keep my voice as normal and calm as possible. Is Grandma still going to live with us? Without looking up from his calculations, my dad answered casually. Of course. I'm the eldest son. It's my responsibility to take care of her. My mom frowned slightly but didn't say anything, continuing to scribble numbers on a piece of paper. A flood of details I had previously ignored came rushing back to me. My grandma has 2 sons. My mom used to complain about why Grandma didn't go live with my uncle. My dad would say my nephew is a boy. It's not convenient for him to live with his grandmother. My mom never mentioned it again. My mother is not a submissive person. She once threw a massive fit because my dad, on a business trip, forgot to bring her a local souvenir. She made him take a long-distance bus back just to buy it again before she let it go. Ever since Grandma moved in, whenever my maternal uncle came over to mooch off us, my dad would just turn a blind eye. The 2 of them rarely fought about their respective families anymore. It seemed they had reached some kind of delicate balance. And I was the bargaining chip they were willing to sacrifice. Don't I deserve to have my own room? Mom, Dad, it's not like we can't afford it. Why do I have to be the one to make the sacrifice? I couldn't hold back my hurt and anger any longer. After shouting, my whole body trembled, and tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. In the face of my breakdown and rage, my parents seemed unusually calm. My dad just shook his head and sighed. So you found out? My mom took a tissue to wipe my tears, chiding me. You'll be away at college, and will barely be home anyway. Why waste a whole room? And let me tell you, the lighting in that 3-bedroom was terrible. A lack of sunlight is really bad for your health. The big 2-bedroom has south-facing rooms and a great layout. And to be blunt, at your grandmother's age after she's gone, the room will be all yours anyway. My mom kept talking, but I only caught one phrase. Why waste a whole room? So in your minds, because I'm a girl, I'll eventually get married and leave. I'm an outsider. I don't deserve a room, and giving me one would just be a waste. If I were a boy, would you have given him his own room? The room was deathly silent. In that moment, I finally understood what Dana meant. An only child by policy. How ironic. The status I had been so proud of was just something my parents had been forced into. My parents were both government employees. They couldn't risk their careers by having a second child to try for a son. Even though I was their only child, they still had an invisible son in their hearts. My parents finally put down their calculator and pen. My dad reacted first, his voice filled with the shame and anger of being exposed. You ungrateful child. We raised you all this time just so you could question us? Girls in the countryside don't even get to go to school. They're married off early to pay their family's debts. And here you are, being picky. We've spoiled you rotten. My dad was panting after his tirade. My mom poured him a glass of water, and then shot me a disapproving look. What is wrong with you, getting fixated on this again? Mom, you pulled a lot of strings to get my cousin into that new magnet school, didn't you? So your nephew could get a good education. Dad, I hear my other cousin is going to a private university. Are you footing that massive tuition bill? For a second, my parents' faces looked unnatural, but their expressions quickly shifted back to anger. Your uncle only has one son. Back then, my career was more important. Your cousin is the only male heir in our family. He is your family, your support system down the line. Don't you use that tone. I laughed. I laughed so hard I bent over, tears streaming down my face. I had personally shattered my own delusion. That I was the only daughter, basking in all my family's love. My mom looked at my dad with concern. What's wrong with our daughter? My dad snorted. You spoiled her. Girls should just be raised simply. My mom shot back. Why don't you try simply raising that good-for-nothing nephew of yours? He couldn't even get into a public university. My dad retorted. And your brother's son is so great? He is failing his classes in elementary school. As they started to argue, they didn't notice I had already gone back to my room. Maybe because of the huge fight, my emotions actually calmed down. I opened my laptop and changed all my college preferences to universities in the north, over 1,000 miles away. If this place won't have me, there are other places that will. That evening, my parents knocked on my door and called me to the living room for dinner, acting as if nothing had happened. I could feel their slightly unnatural gazes on me. I looked at the table full of my favorite dishes, shrieked with excitement just like I always did, and gave them the emotional validation they craved. Wow, dinner looks amazing. You two could be professional chefs. Are we celebrating our upcoming move? My parents were very pleased with my no hard feelings performance. They exchanged a smile and whispered to each other. See? I told you. Our daughter wouldn't stay mad at us. She's just a kid. It's all better now. Yes. This is our sweet girl, always on our side. My dad, having had a little to drink, looked at me with a loving gaze. Lily, when you're in college, you have to come home for dinner every week. Dad will make all your favorite dishes. My mom, serving tea, smiled and shook her head. Look how you spoil her. Then she'll blame it all on me. I was busy eating and didn't have time to talk, just nodding along with Look at her. Such a big girl acting like a little kid. It's all your fault for spoiling her. She's our only treasure. How could we not spoil her? I laughed along with them, acting carefree and thoughtless. Our relationship seemed even closer than before. Because my SAT scores were excellent, my parents' colleagues were always inviting our family out to dinner. Ostensibly, so my parents could share their child-rearing wisdom. My dad's school even issued a letter of commendation, and my mom's department gave her a bonus. My dad was beaming, and my mom looked 10 years younger. The night before my acceptance letters were due, I was dragged to another dinner party. My dad's best friend, a little drunk, got chatty. See, this is why having a daughter is better. She goes to college locally, marries locally. When her parents have a headache or a fever, she's right there to help. Not like my troublemaker son, so restless, had to run off to a school 1,000 miles away. They say you're most likely to stay and work where you go to college. I'll have no one to take care of me when I'm old. Daughters are just more caring. My dad waved his hand dismissively, but the pride in his eyes was overflowing. Not at all. Sons and daughters are equally caring. My mom was peeling shrimp for me, sneaking glances at my great-aunt across the table. Dana's mother. You know your great-aunt. Can you believe she let her only daughter go all the way up to the Northeast for college? She'll probably get married up there too. Both of them have high blood pressure. What if something happens one day? Just two old people left alone. My Lily is so much more thoughtful. She'll be mom and dad's sweet girl forever. As she spoke, she reached over and playfully pinched my nose. My mom's voice wasn't quiet, the whole table heard her. My great-aunt in particular looked extremely uncomfortable. My dad lightly scolded my mom. You talk too much. Come on, everyone, let us drink. Dana, who happened to be sitting next to her mother, let out a cold laugh, suddenly stood up, and raised her glass to me. Looks like we'll be classmates. Not going to have a drink with me? My mom looked at me, her expression slow to register, then turning to shock. I knew I couldn't hide it anymore, but I hadn't planned to anyway. I said calmly, I applied to the Harbin Institute of Technology. I've probably already been accepted. My mom slapped my arm lightly. You and your cousin are just teasing us. Everyone knows you're a total mama-esque girl. My dad laughed too. Silly girl, you can't even handle the food up there. The dinner continued, and everyone kept joking around, but the atmosphere was noticeably less lively. Especially my parents, who were frequently lost in thought. We finally made it through the dinner. On the way home, my dad was the first to speak. Lily, you applied to a local university, right? My mom shot my dad a sideways glance. Our Lily is the most obedient girl. Don't you know that? They both looked at me, their eyes filled with anticipation and a hint of anxiety. I blinked. I won't disappoint you. I'll just make you furious. They both sighed in relief and started chatting about picking a good day to move into the new house. The next morning, the mail carrier delivered my university acceptance letter. My mom was just like I had been that day, clutching a final shred of hope, nervously wondering if they had bought a house with a room for me. She prayed devoutly. My dad even closed his eyes as he tore open the envelope. But reality doesn't bend to their will. Harbin Institute of Technology. The 7 words were embossed in gold foil. They hit them like a whip across the face. The feeling was probably the same as when I found out they had bought a 2-bedroom apartment. A sense of disbelief, of being utterly deceived. My mom stamped her foot, heartbroken. Honey, we trusted you so much. We gave you the freedom to choose. We didn't interfere with your applications. And this is how you repay us? Was that freedom? No, that was just their confidence that they had everything under control. I explained to her calmly, Mom, if I go to college here, I'll have to come home every week. I'll have to keep sleeping with Grandma. I'll have to turn the lights out on her schedule, stay up late, or even be on my phone without making a sound. I can't talk to my friends. I don't want to live like that. My dad's eyebrows shot up. He looked crushed. His tone was full of disappointment. So because of a room, you lied to your parents? You're abandoning us? I nodded. Yes. Because of a room. My mom's voice was verging on tears. Then you can sleep in our room. Your father and I aren't unreasonable. We can stay up and talk with you. We can even play video games with you. I shook my head. When Grandma first moved in, and her snoring kept me awake, I did temporarily sleep in my parents' room. At first, I was excited. It was like being a little kid again, sleeping with mom and dad. But at night, they would whisper to each other, checking to see if I was truly asleep. Then there would be strange noises, and the bed would start shaking violently. I slowly figured out what was happening. I was mortified and terrified. I quickly found an excuse to move back in with Grandma. Honey, I really didn't know you were so bothered by it. It's just a room, isn't it? We can get a different house after you graduate. And we have those other 2 properties that we'll get back in 10 years. Those places are bigger, they have 4 bedrooms. You can have 2 rooms if you want. My mom was rambling, desperate. Was it just about the room? Not entirely. They had 2 other properties, but they de-signed rental contracts that spanned more than a decade without a second thought. They never planned on moving back themselves. Our current apartment wasn't even that small. They could have easily partitioned off a small room in the living room, but they thought it was too much trouble, that it would interfere with their TV time. They wouldn't even compromise on a little bit of natural light for me. Did they really love me? Love is supposed to feel like you always owe the other person, like you want to give them the best of everything. I suddenly remembered why Dana and I never got along. One year, I went to her house to play. Her family wasn't well off at the time. The 3 of them lived in a rundown urban village, sharing an apartment with another family. My aunt had specifically hired someone to build a small, partitioned-off room with wooden planks. Inside, it was filled with all of Dana's dolls and toys. For some reason, I just burst into tears. Maybe it was the contrast. In such a dilapidated environment, there was this little pink room. The impact on me was immense. Later, my mom told my dad with a look of disdain, "Can you believe they carved out a tiny room in that dump? It's hilarious. Thank God our daughter has it so much better." Honestly, the university in Harbin had always been my dream school, but I backed down because of the distance. I was worried about being so far from my parents. They doted on me so much I thought they'd be sad if I left. But maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe I wasn't that important. My dad tore my acceptance letter to shreds and threatened me. "If you dare go, we'll disown you. We won't pay a dime for your tuition or living expenses." My mom tried to reason with me. "Honey, how about you just take a gap year and reapply? It's so long and cold in the Northeast during the winter. You won't get used to it." I grabbed my already packed suitcase and walked toward the door. Behind me were my dad's roars of anger and my mom's sobs. On my way downstairs, I ran into my grandmother coming home. Even though we hadn't seen each other in days, she didn't greet me with the same beaming smile she gave my male cousin. Her expression was flat. "I went to your uncle's place, but he and your aunt were fighting constantly. Your dad is much more filial. I'm more comfortable at your house. I hear you and your parents are moving to a bigger place. Tell them to buy a big bed this time. It's not comfortable for me being squeezed in with you either." I gave a bitter smile and continued down the stairs. I started helping out at Dana's family's small restaurant. The pay was only $2,000 a month, but it included room and board, which I was happy with. My parents sent a message. If I didn't come home before the semester started, they would wash their hands of me. They seemed to think they had me cornered. In their eyes, I was a spoiled princess who couldn't even pick up a bottle if it fell over. How could I possibly handle manual labor? My aunt tried to persuade me. "Why don't you just go home? All parents love their children. They're just saying those things because they're angry." Dana scoffed. "Mom, don't get involved. All we have to do is pay her on time." I didn't mind Dana's bluntness. After all, she had to beg her mom for a long time before she agreed to take me in. When I didn't come crawling back, my parents both took time off work and went on a trip with their respective nephews. The 4 of them went on the Sichuan-Tibet scenic route I had been dreaming about for ages. I had planned the whole thing, made an itinerary, and was going to go with my parents right after I submitted my college applications. On their social media, my dad had his arm around my cousin, and my mom was hugging my other cousin. They were all smiling radiantly. My dad sent me a text. "This was all supposed to be for you." My mom didn't say anything, just kept sending me pictures of the scenery along their route. I had just finished wiping down several tables. I cleaned the grease off my hands before replying. Have a great time. But I wasn't as strong as I thought. Tears started to fall despite myself. I turned on the faucet and splashed water on my face until my collar was soaked. I let out a sneeze. I rushed to the back to change my shirt. Customers outside were already calling for their food. I pushed aside my sadness and got back to work. When my parents got back from their trip, they came to see me right away. They brought my cousins with them to my aunt's little restaurant for dinner. One cousin was holding the latest Apple gear, iPhone, iPad, AirPods. The other was wearing a new jersey and brand name sneakers. My mother ordered all of her nephew's favorite dishes. My father handed the menu to his nephew and told him to order whatever he wanted. My cousin looked a little uncomfortable and waved at me. Lily, come sit with us. My dad snorted. Ignore her. She'd rather suffer than live a good life. I was wearing a greasy apron, and my hair smelled of oil. The sight of me made my mom's eyes instantly turn red. Lily, come home with mom. We've already found a prep school for you. You have such a good foundation, just one more year of hard work. My cousin couldn't help but chime in. Auntie, they might change the college entrance exams next year. Taking a gap year isn't so simple. It can really mess with your head. My other cousin was more naive. What's a gap year? Is cousin Lily being held back? How embarrassing. The table fell silent for a moment. My mom lowered her standards. Then just aim for a good state school. There are good majors at the local ones. Or at the very least, just get a regular bachelor's degree. Her indecisiveness was so ridiculous that I started to laugh. I actually laughed out loud. Who said I was taking a gap year? My dad slammed his hand on the table. Fine, do what you want. But I'm telling you right now, if you go to the Northeast, we won't give you a single penny. You don't actually think that $2,000 a month is enough to cover your tuition and living expenses, do you? Dana walked over and pushed me aside. You're not a princess anymore. You're my employee. Go serve the customers. I took the opportunity to escape to the kitchen. As the start of the semester approached, the news that I had secretly changed my college application spread like wildfire among our relatives. It was a huge loss of face for my parents, who prided themselves on being experts in raising a daughter. They started to throw caution to the wind. They told everyone I was ungrateful, that I couldn't stand being around my grandmother, and that's why I chose a school 1,000 miles away. This was a failure of their parenting, they said. But if I apologized first, I could still be their good daughter. This mutually destructive tactic still didn't faze me. I didn't go home and beg for their forgiveness. As the deadline to enroll in the prep school neared, my mom was the first to crack. I hadn't seen her in days, and she seemed to have aged overnight. The number 50 had suddenly become a reality on her face. Just a few months ago, when we were out shopping, people thought she was my older sister. I felt a pang of sadness. For a split second, I wondered if I had truly broken their hearts. If I was a terrible daughter. But the thought was fleeting, and I quickly pushed it away. My mom grabbed my arm, her voice pleading. Lily, if you really want to go, then go. Just come home when you have time, okay? We're going to cancel the contract on that house and find a 3-bedroom. We'll just lose the deposit. My face showed none of the ecstatic joy my mom was hoping for. It turns out that even an obsession has an expiration date. Now, I was more excited about the snow in the north. As a southerner, I'd never seen enough snow to blanket an entire city. Mom, I heard that for our current apartment, the one in the good school district, you and Dad had a huge fight over whether to give the school spot to your nephew or his nephew. Neither of you would back down, so I was the lucky one who got it. My mom looked stunned for a moment. That was years ago. I didn't press further. I no longer wanted to know the answer. I reassured her, don't worry. I'll come home for the holidays. I went to Harbin early. My mom eventually gave me some living expenses, telling me not to let my dad know. And I kept my promise. Because I did go home for the holidays. I really did have my own little room. They had a beautiful, antique-style clothing rack built for my costume collection. They even got a transparent display case for my figurines. But my love for costumes had faded, and I had lost interest in my collectibles. Things that come too late are like expired medicine. No matter how important they once were, they're now meaningless. I preferred to spend my time working part-time jobs and saving money. That gave me a greater sense of security. I was constantly studying for certifications, and my coursework got heavier, so my trips home became less frequent. My dad grew more anxious than my mom. He finally asked me directly, "Where are you planning on working after you graduate?" We had actually gotten along pretty well over the past few years, often chatting about my studies. I suddenly felt like teasing them. "I like it up north. I might stay here." On his end, the chat bubble showed he was typing, but no message came through. Soon after, messages started pouring in from relatives who were close to us. Most of them were trying to persuade me to find a job back home. Even Dana called to talk me into it. "Your parents went a little too far, but they've aged a lot these past few years. Your dad's blood pressure is always high, and your mom has a herniated disc and needs to get massages all the time. Why don't you just come back? You could look after them a bit." My mom was the last one to call. "Our hometown is a major city. You can find a good job here. We're about to retire. We could cook for you. Wouldn't that be so much easier?" I didn't answer. My mom's voice took on a slightly accusatory tone. "If you're still holding a grudge against us over a room, that was all in the past. There shouldn't be overnight grudges between parents and children." A wicked thought popped into my head. I heard myself say, "If you transfer one of the properties into my name, I'll come back and find a job." My mom hesitated. "But the house we live in now is for our retirement." I decided to be mischievous again. "You still have the other two, right? Just give me one." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. "You ungrateful wolf. All you want is our property. Well, I refuse to give it to you." My dad's voice was no longer as strong as it used to be, but it was still loud enough to make my ears hurt. My mom quickly tried to explain. "Lily, you're a girl. When you get married, your husband's family will provide a house. If the bride's family provides the house, it looks like you're desperate, and people will laugh at you." I cut in. "So the other two houses you've decided to give one to each of my cousins? Right, maybe you've already transferred the deeds. I'm very fair." "Lily, it's not what you think. I hung up the phone. What did I think? My one cousin's name, given by my parents, essentially means bring honor to the family. My other cousin's name means make a name for himself. And my name is Lily. Just a sweet little thing, an afterthought. They might have loved me, but they loved their invisible sons more. But those boys have their own parents. They didn't need my parents' coddling. So my parents had to find other ways to love them. And I got whatever leftover affection there was. I thought I would at least have a hysterical breakdown, but I was calm. Accepting that your parents don't love you that much isn't as hard as it seems, though it took me a long time to realize it. I didn't end up staying in the Northeast. My mom was right about one thing. There were no jobs there suitable for my major. I moved to Shanghai, which was still over 1,000 miles from my hometown. I prioritized finding a company that provided an apartment. If I worked there for 10 years, the small apartment would be mine. I seemed to have developed an obsession with having a place of my own. In a city as expensive as Shanghai, this was an incredibly generous offer. With that, I finally put down roots. I had a home in the truest sense of the word. Whenever I had time, I would still fly home. But work wasn't like school. Besides my annual leave, I could barely squeeze out any other time to go back. So every year, I could only go home for 3 or 4 days during the new year. I heard that my uncle and my other uncle's family had already moved into the 2 properties my parents used to rent out. When I visited for the new year, my parents watched me nervously, as if they were afraid I would cause a scene. But I was quiet, as obedient as I was when I was a child. I did whatever my parents asked me to do. But even this version of me didn't put them at ease. My younger uncle, a man of few words, told me he had set me up on a blind date, and that I should go when I had time. My other uncle, who hadn't even finished middle school, suggested I take the civil service exam in our hometown, saying it was a promising career path. My dismissive attitude made my parents' faces darken. After all, I was almost 30. When it came to dating and taking the civil service exam, I was no longer at a prime age. My dad cleared his throat. With a hint of pride, he announced loudly, "If Lily is willing to come back home to find a partner, or take the civil service exam. I will transfer our retirement home to her name. My dad had aged a lot in recent years and developed several chronic illnesses. My mom constantly suffered from back and leg pain, and when it flared up, she could only lie in bed. Their cloudy, expectant eyes were fixed on me. They seemed to be waiting for me to jump for joy and nod eagerly, to coo like I did when I was a child. Mom and Dad are the best. But I just picked up a piece of food with my chopsticks, and only after I finished eating did I say slowly, I also have something to announce. My boyfriend and I are already married. We also bought a new apartment. We decided not to have a wedding, so we didn't inform friends and family beforehand. My parents stared at me stunned, as if what I had said was impossible to comprehend. Their faces quickly turned pale, and their bodies began to tremble. On the first day of the new year, my mother broke down, covering her face and weeping uncontrollably. How could this happen? Why? But I felt no sense of triumphant revenge. Just a dull ache in my heart. In the battle between parents and children, there are never any winners. I wiped my mother's tears and comforted her gently. I've learned how to plan my own life. That's a good thing, isn't it? If you want, you can come live with me in Shanghai. My mom shook her head violently, tears mixing with snot. No, that's not how it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be like this. How was it supposed to be? I had no interest in finding out. My dad also wiped his face with his sleeve. His lips moved, but he said nothing. My uncles and their families lowered their heads, lost in thought. In the end, my parents were unwilling to move to Shanghai with me. They were used to the southern climate, a place without winter. The day I gave birth to my daughter, they came to my home for the first time. Property prices in Shanghai are sky high. My husband and I had to scrimp and save just to buy a small 2-bedroom apartment. My mom asked me timidly, with a hint of embarrassment, where they would be staying. I pointed out the window at a hotel. I've booked a room for you there. It's south close to my place, very convenient. If you want to stay long-term, there's a small studio apartment for rent nearby. They only stayed for a few days before going back. My dad had bronchitis and could only live in the south during the fall and winter. My mom's back and leg pain flared up in the spring and summer, forcing her to stay home. My husband thought I was too cold to my parents, even though I had told him when we were dating about how the independent room had become a demon that haunted my adolescence. He didn't understand. But that's all in the past, isn't it? Yes, it's all in the past. And I hadn't done anything wrong. I just stayed in a city that I liked. Later, my dad got seriously ill. I took leave from work, arranged for my daughter to be looked after, and rushed back. My parents' nephews came to visit a few times, but their own parents weren't young either, and they had their own families. They couldn't stay overnight at the hospital. I stayed for a week and then decided to hire a nurse. My mom, peeling an orange, said casually, "When your great-aunt had her surgery last time, your cousin Dana took care of her for a whole month. Dana had married someone in our hometown. Her family and her husband's family had pooled their money to buy a townhouse together. Both sets of parents could come and stay for short periods." My dad snapped at my mom, telling her to shut up. Then he turned to me. He smiled bitterly, his eyes glistening with tears. "Be careful on the road. I'll be fine here. Your mom's and my retirement pensions are enough to hire a top-notch nurse. It's a long way, don't fly back and forth if you don't have to. Be careful on the road, Sky." Right. I started going by Sky in college. I too could pursue my own ambitions and reach for the sky. The end.